Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. SAG-AFTRA Foundation and BroadwayWorld continue their filmed Conversations Q&A series, which celebrates the vibrant theater community here in New York City. This event, which is coming from the Robin Williams Center, is a conversation with three of our finest actors who have given us some of the most memorable performances on stage, screen, and television. And they are currently sharing the stage at Studio 54 in Sharr White's critically acclaimed new American play, Pictures from Home, directed by Bartlett Sher. Please welcome Nathan Lane, Danny Burstein, and Zoe Wanamaker. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here with me this afternoon. I'd like to welcome the three of you back to the New York stage. When each of you first read this play, Pictures from Home, what were your initial reactions and what made you say, yes, I have to do this?
It goes back a couple of years. We did. I was sent the play, and I was told it would be a reading that Bartlett Sher was directing, and I read it and just thought it was a beautiful piece and a lovely part, and I certainly wanted to work with Bart, and then found out that Danny was going to do it, and I love Danny, so I was looking forward to that. So that's how it started.
Yeah. Right. Zoe, for you?
I was sent the play last year in October, and I read it and I thought, well, it's a Bart. I'd worked with Bart on Awake and Sing, and I enjoyed doing that a lot. And it was intriguing because I'd never heard of Larry Sultan at all. And because it was Bart and it was also three-hander, and I thought it would be fun. And then I heard that these two guys were in it. I thought, yes, okay, it's fine. And
I found out about the play at the same time Nathan did. I was sent the play by Bart, and I'd worked with Sharr before.
Yeah.
We did a play on Broadway called The Snow Geese with Mary Louise Parker, and we had a great time working together, and I loved him, and I loved Bart, and so, and I loved the play. I thought it was beautiful, and I said yes immediately.
Yeah. Well, this is such a fascinating play that takes us into the personal lives of this family, because Larry had spent over 10 years going home and visiting his parents and documenting their lives. I mean, it's so interesting. How many of you have seen the play already? Yeah.
Next week.
next week.
How many people are going to see the play?
Oh my God.
That's why you're here today. Fabulous.
Don't wait too long.
Who do you each play, and what do you love about these people? Zoe, I'm going to start with you, with Jean.
I find it intriguing.
Yeah.
And it's taken me, I hit the ground running because these guys already, so it took me some time, but it's the tracking of her and the relationships between the two of them I found fascinating, and I'm only just beginning to actually enjoy it. But I do find the fact that it's all taken from this book, that's been published, the picture book and I just found some of the pictures of like a hopper, and I found that just intriguing, just the whole journey of these two people, where they come from and how they developed. And I've said this before, but there's in one of the photographs, there's Jean standing in the doorway in a nightgown, and there's a Matisse next to the doorway. And I thought, where does Larry Sultan get this from? This interest and vision. And I found that fascinating. But the whole thing of what is art? How does art happen? Where does it come from? How do we understand it? That's what I find interesting. And also this relationship, the husband and wife, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Do you want me to go, Danny?
Yeah,
you want to go?
I think you should.
Well, yeah, I too did not know anything about Larry Sultan, and now, thank God for Google. How did we live without Google? And then I found out a lot about Larry Sultan and his work, and then this book I ordered and read it, and You know, the play contains a lot of things from the book and from interviews and situations that certain pictures are based on, and so how did the taking of the lecture photographs of him, standing in front giving a business lecture about sales and all of that, and I also, we got a hold of the tapes that Larry Sultan did with his parents, which was interesting to a certain degree, but you wouldn't want to see a play about those people, because those people are really boring. And I mean, there were certain things that obviously that made it into the book, so you heard the conversation. They weren't anything like what I imagined them to be like. And the father was very, first of all, it's all very calm, very laid back. And he and Larry, they spend a lot of time giggling about things. And the father has this sort of New England-y type accent. It's someone who may be from Brooklyn who decided to lose that accent, and this is his version of a posh accent. And then she has no discernible accent, and she's also very calm, and they're sort of interacting. He's in another room, and she's talking about him cheating on when he was out on the road and calling him a dirty two-timer, very good-naturedly, and him saying, I don't know what you're talking about, and then her saying, you know what, he was working hard, he deserved it. Right. There were certain things I wish they'd included in the play, her progressive attitude towards his philandering. But, not unlike, say, for example, Tony Kushner and Roy Cohn, he created his own Roy Cohn. I don't think Roy Cohn was as witty and charming as he is in Angels in America. And I don't think the real Irv Sultan had the kind of sardonic, dry sense of humor that he has in this play. And he's also creating, this conflict of the artist and the father. And it's, he's found a unique way of telling the story. First, just the use of these photographs is highly unusual. And this mix of a little bit of documentary, a little bit of family dramedy, and this three-way TED Talk where we are each fighting to tell our version of the family narrative, and the audience is, almost like a jury. It's another actor in the play. And even there are asides and direct address, and Danny's Larry Sultan addresses the audience from beginning to end. He never leaves the stage. So that's unusual. And so you have to you take all that information in about Irv Sultan, and then you kind of have to let go of it and say, who is this Irv Sultan, the one that Sharr White has created, and these scenes, and occasionally there were times when I suggested, like, there was a thing he talked about when he worked for this English clothing store, Edward Reed's, where they made him change his name from Irving Sultan to John Sutton. And the anti-Semitism, and I thought that should be in there. That's in a sort of an important little story that he tells. And so we have that sort of input and collaboration. But it's about, once you take in all of that stuff, then it's about the play that you have to deal with.
Danny, for you, what you loved about Larry?
Well, I loved the idea of playing an artist.
Yeah.
And I loved the idea of exploring a family drama. And I thankfully have, both of my parents are still around, but I wanted to explore what that dynamic was like in a different way than I have. And also explore the idea of losing my parents too, and holding on to them and appreciating them and getting to know their origin stories, which I thought was fascinating. And I also love the fact that, as I said, he's an artist, but he's really looking for something and he doesn't know what it is at the beginning. and yet he has the impulse to pursue it. And that's where we find him at the very beginning, looking for something, some grain of truth that he knows is in there with his parents, but he doesn't know what the end game is. And I think that's what we all do as artists.
Yeah.
We go in, we dive in with both feet first, and then see what we come up with.
Yeah, it's such a beautifully written play.
Yeah.
And you know, you talked about the interviews. Was that sort of your way into it? But then, like Nathan said, you have to let that all go, and you got to sort of find these people on your own. Were there other things you drew upon? Like when you looked at the book, like for those of you who have not gotten this memoir, Pictures from Home, it's available everywhere. It's a stunning book. You see this family so vividly come to life through these pictures. And I wondered, like when you were in rehearsal, did you sit and look at the book?
Oh, sure. We talked about the book. We actually went to the Yancey Richardson Gallery and saw the pictures full size, which were incredible, very, very moving. And we found the first edition of the book, which was really very, very special, because it was laid out exactly how Larry wanted it to be. And
This was the first publication.
Yeah. The mostly what you can get now is they reissued the book, and it's not as good as the original. When you see the original, you get it in a big way.
Correct.
What he was doing and how it's all laid out.
Right. And there were interviews with Larry online, and also we were very lucky to get those. The original tapes of him speaking to his parents. It was very low key.
Very low key.
He was very
very low key.
Can't do that. Not for 2 hours.
Not for 2 hours. No, not a lot of drama there.
God. So you have to sort of make it your own. It's told in an unusual way, a unique way. I actually said to Nathan the other day, it was kind of a unique. It was kind of an unusual show. He said, "It's not an unusual show. I mean, The Lower Depths is an unusual show."
That's right.
Ours is, but what he meant was the family drama part of it, and that part is beautiful.
Well, it's a memory play.
Yeah.
It's sort of scenes from the last 2 years of this, what was a decade-long process, if you can believe that. He put them through this for a decade. I couldn't last, 2 weeks of someone taking photographs of me and posing me. And then there was so it's scenes from that last 2 years of that process as the parents wanted to move from the San Fernando Valley to Palm Desert. And when you first see these pictures, you think, I'm never going to look anything like Irv Sultan. He looked like a version of Johnny Carson. Mm-hmm. When he was young, he was strikingly handsome, like movie star handsome. And so there was discussion of how do we deal with this? Mm-hmm. And then first it was, we're not going to do anything. We're just 3 actors who were taking on these personas, father, mother, and son. And then there was talk of, in terms of age, with me and Danny, of do we do something to maybe just suggest the look or to show a difference in age, and so then we wound up with wigs, and then initially my wig was he had white hair, so I looked like Superman's father, Jor-El. And then they took it into the alley and beat it into submission, and then for a while I looked like John DeLorean, and then finally it got calmed down enough so it looked like my hair, and then Danny also went through a process with one wig and then to another, a little subtler. Yes, initially you looked like the oldest member of Menudo. Anyway, but, it was a process.
It was.
As it always is, ladies and gentlemen. It's a process. And so we figured all of that out. But it was the notion was that anybody could play these parts. It wasn't about, do I look exactly, because how do you find people who look exactly like the real people? So and that's not the most important thing. It's about who they were as people, obviously.
Yeah.
Not a biopic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Zoe, did your wig change during the process?
No, not much.
No, her wig was really good from the very
Always.
beginning.
I
Yeah.
tried to make it so that it wasn't as. The thing, we can't be these people. It's just a representation of the characters, the people who no longer exist. I mean, you're not going to do Elizabeth the First with the same haircut and the same. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you have. So, and also Bart said it initially when we had dinner together, we first met, and he said maybe there should be a costume rail. And you put on a wig, and you put on a it's going to take 3 months, you know what I mean?
Oh, that would have been
That would have
bad.
been terrible.
That would not have been good.
No, it's a whole other genre.
Yeah, it was like we're doing Pippin. Yeah. Grabbing wigs and hats.
Yeah.
That would be not good.
Horrible.
Not good for this play.
I just wanted to not make it so perfect. I just wanted to make it sort of in between, just a representation.
Danny, what did your wig look like, the first one you got?
It was
Looked like a Japanese man.
it was not
Sort of
it
like-
was not very good.
No.
Didn't work out. But it's
Dondi. You look like Dondi.
Dondi.
For those old people here, Dondi, remember Dondi, the cartoon character?
Newspaper,
That's
sure.
exactly who he looked like.
That's what I look
Dondi
like.
had,
It's
you know,
Too much.
Yeah.
Way too much hair.
it was a lot of hair.
Yeah, it's a lot of hair. It's enough for 3 wigs. But now I have this little hair piece that actually looks like me. It really does, with a little bit of hair.
Because Jeremy Pope and Paul Bettany were here a few weeks ago, and they, you know, Jeremy just played Jean-Michel Basquiat, and Paul played Andy Warhol, and they had the same issues because the wigs that started out in London were like what you just talked about, were like totally different than what they had in New York. But it makes a big deal when you first try these things on, and you're like, I look like, you know, Jarell.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Those, you know, it's hard to get that right. It's, you know, the last thing you want is for people to, you know, go, oh, it's Nathan Lane in a wig.
Yeah, exactly.
A wig. It's very noticeable that it's a wig.
Right.
And so it's hard to get it.
It's another, I mean, the thing is, it's just another piece of information that you're giving all the time, and it
Yeah.
has to feel right. It's just like a character just getting into that.
You know, it's nice to disappear into, you know, with a different look, and yeah, but it's tricky to get right.
Because there was a question that someone wrote for the audience I was going to do later, but how does a costume play into you perfecting a character? You just started to talk about this.
I love it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it because it's a collaboration. But then, you know, that's what the theatre is about.
Yeah.
It's a collaboration, and that you find it together and what is right for you, the feel of it, and also not to be constantly making it look exactly right, but just have an impression. And it's you know, you try things on. And the great thing is that this costume designer has been so clever. She just got a whole lot of rails of stuff. And it's just what feels right and what you can create together. I mean, I didn't realize we were going to have so many costume changes.
Yeah.
And that was a bit of a shock. Not a shock, we just had to... It was difficult to get into your head that we were going to constantly be representing another thing. But it works in the end. I mean,
Well, there was, I mean, it's Southern California. It's casual, or mostly casual, where, you know, golfing or just hanging out, and you know, I mean, Irv Sultan, he spent a lot of time in just shorts, no shirt, and I wasn't going to be doing that. I'm very happy for Irv that he felt so he felt good about his body, but yeah, it's certainly I mean, they're easy costumes to wear. It was because of the lifestyle they were leading and where they lived, but yeah, clothing has a huge effect. You know, in the Gilded Age, you know, I put on the clothes, and first of all, by the time you finish putting them on, you're exhausted. Yes. And you thought, wow, Jesus, you really had to think twice about going out in this period of time. When it takes this long to put on a shirt, but it does affect the way you walk and the way you hold your body, and yeah.
Danny, for you with costumes and creating a character, especially Larry.
Yeah, well, it informs the audience and it informs you. And you just slip into another costume, slip into a costume, and it feels like you slip into another person.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel before I leave my dressing room with the wig and with the costume. All of a sudden, you're him.
Yeah.
And it takes care of so much of the work for you when you walk out the door, and then when you walk out on stage, you know, when you've done all the prep work that you need to do, it just feels right.
Well, you know, you were all working with Bartlett Sher, who is one of the most in-demand directors. What makes Bart such a wonderful director to work with? Because you've all worked with the best, and he's right up there. Danny, you have the longest?
I've worked, yeah, we've done 6 Broadway shows together. Wow.
Yeah.
And he's just smart. That's basically it. And he wants to get into the sandbox with you. He hasn't figured everything out. He has many ideas when you walk in the room, but he wants to make sure that you're as comfortable as he is with everything, and you find it together. And that's the great thing about Bart. You build it together. So many directors, you know, play mind games and go, I don't know whether. It's never about that. It's never about judging. It's about finding this and making it the most real and honest thing it can be every single time. And he does most of his work in previews, actually, because it gives him a chance, because he's really at his best, and intrinsically he is a storyteller. And so during previews he can sit back and watch the piece and go, oh, we're not telling the story right in this scene. This needs to move over here, and this idea in this scene needs to be punched up so it can land 3 scenes later. He's that kind of a director and that kind of smart.
He's also quite funny.
Yes, he is. Very, very funny.
Zoe, you worked with him before with Awake and Sing.
It's the only thing
What
with
you
Awake and
admire
Sing.
the most about Bart?
Well,
His hair.
his hair. No, he's funny. He always says, I don't know, which I like. He admits that he doesn't know. But I just...
Not too much. That would be troubling. If all he said was, I don't know.
Yeah. But he also has a kind of a European idea as well, which I find helpful, as you know, just an approach that is not necessarily front cloth stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Nathan, for you, it's your first time working with Bart, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, I agree with everything. He's, you know, very smart, and I think I had some impression that he must be very serious director. And we only, we would meet in passing at benefits and things, or theater, or he wrote me notes a couple of times. And I thought, well, this seems like a lovely guy. But I had this impression that he must be a very serious director. And he's the most relaxed, easygoing, funny guy. And he doesn't... he never seems, he may be, but he never seems worried or like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. He's always like, everything's gonna be fine. It's all gonna work out in the end, and which is a very comforting thing. And I've loved working with him. He's just one of the best, and he's a great leader. And yet you feel like you're in the sandbox with him, and we're working it all out together. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
And just a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Well, this is a brand new American play. How wonderful and helpful was it having Sharr in the rehearsal room with you? Anybody can start with this.
It was, as far as I was concerned, I think it was good because it was a collaboration as well with Bart, and that Bart would ask him if he could rewrite something if it wasn't working or something like that. I think it was helpful. I mean, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I loved having him there.
Yeah.
Also, you could ask him, why am I saying this here? And he could justify it or go, do you not hear what I'm hearing? And then maybe adjust it. And he changed a lot. There were a lot of changes during previews and during rehearsals, just to make it tighter and tighter and more succinct in its ideas and its philosophies.
Yeah. Nathan, for you, having Sharr in the room.
great. He's great. He may be one of the best-looking playwrights
Yes.
I've ever seen. He looks like a Land's End model. He shows up in these outfits, the rugged,
Clark Kent.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
very Clark Kent. Yeah. He's very funny, very smart, lovely man, and a wonderful writer, and yes, extremely collaborative, and he was a great presence. He wasn't sitting there. It wasn't intimidating. It felt like he was there to help and to make adjustments, or if something wasn't clear. He was great, just great.
Yeah, because a lot of times when you're doing classics, these playwrights are no longer around, so you just have a director in the room. So I think it's so great that you're working on a brand new
I mean, that's
American
good
play.
too,
Yeah.
when they're not around. Then you can really talk about it. But no, Sharr is terrific, a wonderful collaborator.
Well, the three of you are perfection in this play. For those of you who, like I said, who are going to get tickets to this show, they are just up like a perfect tennis match, the three of them up there. Go right ahead, please. Yeah. Talk about working together and what's made this so special for each of you.
I'm working, I could start to cry. I'm working with two of my heroes.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what's beautiful about it. Not a day that I don't pinch myself on stage, knowing how lucky I am to be working with them, to be discovering things with them, to be playing tennis with them every night. I feel like it's one of the greatest theatrical experiences I've ever had because of the two of them. And it's not just on stage, too. I love them both off stage. So that makes everything worth it. I check in with them. I make sure, we all do, to check in with each other before every show, before every performance. We all just touch each other and tell each other that we love each other and to have a great show. And it means a lot. My mom. Yeah, we love each other. And that's what makes this show continue. I mean, it's what made it work in the beginning, but it continues to grow and get deeper and better. I think, we were talking last night. Zoe said, I think that was our best performance ever. And it did. It felt like that because it continues to grow and really deepen in the best way.
Yeah.
Zoe, for you, working together.
I'm with him.
Because they knew each other sort of, and they had done readings before. You
Yeah.
were the last one to enter the
You
picture.
betcha. I also have dyslexia, and so it was. I'd been working right up to coming here, and it was just I was running to catch up the whole time. So it was. I felt that I was behind. But so and then we all three of us got COVID, so we lost 2 weeks of rehearsal.
Oh yeah. 10 days in, we all got COVID.
Yeah.
Really?
It was.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. But yeah, exactly, because these guys, they're great actors, and what more can you ask for?
Yeah.
That's all. I've had fun. I have fun.
Yeah. Nathan, what's made it so special for you?
Yes, it's what it's all about. It's just the three of us, and Danny. I've loved Danny. Well, from the moment I saw him in The Drowsy Chaperone, that was the first time I saw him, and I just thought he was screamingly funny. He did that number, I Am Adolfo. And I was like, who is this guy? He's hilarious, and he sings like a dream, and the physical comedy, the whole thing. And so I've just been a huge fan, and as magnificent an actor as he is, he's one of the greatest people in the world, and with a huge heart, and it's been the finally getting to work with him has been a joy, and Zoe, is it Zoe or Zoe? Please tell me. I think at this point you can tell me.
It's Zoe.
Zoe, it's Zoe.
You can call me Zoe.
Yeah. That I just say that British woman. And anyway, it's been, you know, I didn't know Zoe, but obviously I couldn't even pronounce her name, but I knew her by reputation, and she's been nothing but a delight, and it's been a great. It's been wonderful. I love doing this play. I love this little play so much, and I have loved doing it with these great artists, and I think that comes across. We come across as a family, and yes, it's look, like any play. It just with time, it gets better and better and deeper, and I think we're in such a great place right now with this show, and so I'm very proud of it.
Beautiful. I want to go back to the beginning. We have so many actors here and actors watching. Was there a defining moment for each of you when you said, I want to do this, I want to be an actor, this is going to be my life?
Last Thursday. I was thinking, you know what? I think this might work out. You know, just before they put me in the home. I think I got it now. I think I've nailed it.
I was taken to the theatre very young. I was lucky enough to have parents who were interested in everything. When Dad was blacklisted, they moved to England, and just before he was subpoenaed, he was tipped off that he was going to be subpoenaed, and he got a film in England, so Mum packed everything up and into storage and came over with my big sister, and then sure enough, he was subpoenaed, and he refused to go back, and they took their passports away. So, you know, MI5 and people like that were following Dad and constantly labeled as a communist, and so, but when I was growing up, I was just, I think my nanny here used to take me to communion. And I loved the incense, apparently, and all the costumes. That's what my mother said, anyway. And I just loved going to the theatre and being part of it. So I've always known. Yeah. I've always wanted to do it.
Well, for those of you who don't know, her father is one of the finest actors, Sam Wanamaker. Yes. Her mother was actress Charlotte Holland. They didn't want you to go in the business, though, did they?
Oh, God, no. No. Firstly, they wanted me to change my nose. Then they wanted me to... Also, just because I'm a girl. And it's harder because you're on your face and what you look like. But I worked for a casting director in England as a Girl Friday. She threw me a script. And she said, read the script, I've got to go out. And here's Spotlight, which is, those books with pictures of people from A to Z. And choose Vanessa Redgrave's best friend in this film. It was Isadora, about Isadora Duncan. And so I went through it, and she came back and she went, oh, Zoe, no. Oh, no, that photograph's so old. And it went like this. I thought, fuck this. This is the way, this is how we cast. Of course, it went to an American, which is, this is funny. But I thought, I don't want to be in this business if that's as easy as that. Is that how you cast, just from somebody's face? And it's still true. But it taught me a lot about the business in that way, that I was there to experience this.
Beautiful. Yeah, and you never changed anything, which is great. You're Zoe Wanamaker.
Yes.
No, but what I mean is, you are who you are. I mean, you have this beautiful, distinct look about you. You're an incredible actress, and you stayed true to yourself, which I think is really important.
Well, I was very frightened.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I was intimidated by my parents because they were there at Lee Strasberg's first day at school in his front room.
Yeah.
And so that whole method thing was very, very... I thought maybe I should be doing this. And when I went to drama school in England, I said I wanted to, the method, I want to try this, I want to try Stanislavski, I want to try this. Oh, this is read a book. So, yeah. want to experience it all, of ways of getting there, of finding, not being in a muddle.
Yeah. Nathan, for you, was there a defining moment for you besides last week?
Well, you know, I was when I was a kid, I was a voracious reader. I was given books a lot, and my brother, my oldest brother, was a teacher, and he would take me to the theater. And in fact, at one point, I don't know, I guess I was 11, 10 or 11, and his friends, he was in college, and his friends were doing a play, and they needed a kid for this play, and he volunteered my services. I'll get my kid brother to do it. I didn't know why, I don't know. He must have seen something in me. Maybe it was when one time he and my father died when I was 11, so you know, he was feeling like a father figure, and he and my other brother, the middle brother, they took me out to throw a football around, which we did for about 10 minutes, and then I stopped them and I said to them, listen, again, I was around 11, I said, listen, I am not a sportsman. So maybe that's when he thought I might have a feel for the arts. And so he took me to the theater, put me in this play when I was a kid, and then I joined a Play of the Month club called the Fireside Theater. Yeah. They would send me a Play of the Month. The first play they sent me was The Odd Couple. So it always it always felt like, oh, you know, when I was taken to the theater and that whole communal experience and sitting in the dark and being told a story, that seemed like, it felt to me somewhere inside like this is maybe something I could do. As far as going, there wasn't one particular moment. Maybe when I was in Chicago doing The Iceman Cometh, and I felt like, oh, yeah, something is happening, and that was sort of a life-changing experience. But yeah, you know, from early on, I felt like I would wind up performing in some way.
Yeah, Danny, for you.
Both my parents are teachers, and I was not a voracious reader, unfortunately. My dad, much to my parents' chagrin, my dad gave me book after book, and I would go about 90 pages into it and go, I'm just bored. And then he gave me a play, and that's what did it for me. And I just understood the dialogue form. I loved people talking back and forth and working out ideas or not working out ideas. And then I just couldn't wait to read the next play. And he had this huge book of great American plays and great British plays, and just went through all of those. And I just kept reading and reading. And then an English teacher of mine in junior high school, at Parsons Junior High School in Queens, said, why don't you, get into this show? I think you have something. And that he was directing. It was the Me Nobody Knows, that musical. And afterwards he said, you should go to the High School of Performing Arts. And I said, okay, what's the High School of Performing Arts? And he explained it to me, and he said, Liza Minnelli went there, and Ben Vereen went there, and it's a great place. And I said, okay, what do I have to do? He said, you have to perform a couple of monologues. I said, great, what's a monologue? And it was like that. And one thing led to another. And the year I tried out, well over 4,000 New York City school kids auditioned, and 127 made it in. And I was just lucky enough to be one of those 127 people, and it changed my life.
Yeah. That's good. Do you remember your monologue?
I remember
that you
did a monologue from Saroyan's The Time of Your Life.
Wow.
Also from Dead End.
God.
Sidney Kingsley, yeah.
Beautiful.
Do I remember it? No.
No.
I thought you were taking that pause. Okay, do it.
No, do it first now. No. Broadway debuts. 13. Broadway debuts are very special. They only happen once. How magical were each of yours? Zoe, yours was your beautiful performance in Piaf, co-starring alongside Jane Laportaire. Go right ahead. I remember it vividly. This show marked a turning point in your career, didn't it? Of how you something with your hands?
Oh, how funny you should say. The guy who directed it was Howard Davis, who was at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and he was the first director who made me concentrate, because I was always worried about what am I doing with my hands, and he just made me think. That's all. And it's the first time I stopped worrying about what am I going to do with my hands, and it was that was wonderful the first time. Because it was about thinking, that was all. And you always try and think, but I mean, this just kind of deflecting, making an actor, and that's a great talent in a director, actually, so that you don't feel that you don't feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
You're wrong, it's just making work go in he was brilliant. I worked with him about 8 times. After that.
Brilliant performance in that.
Thank you.
Really great. Nathan, yours was opposite George C. Scott in Present Laughter at Circle in the Square.
Come on.
Yeah, that's George C. Scott. What is one of your favorite memories of working with George?
No. George C. for Cuddles Scott. Yeah, he was an intimidating figure, even before he had a bottle of vodka. Well, I mean, that was one of those, I had, just as a preamble to that, I had gone to, it was the late 70s, and I was working as part of a comedy team. I was just a struggling actor, and with another struggling actor, we formed a comedy team. We did sketches, and we went to LA. We had a manager, and we signed with William Morris, and did a showcase at the Comedy Store, and then we were just struggling, opening for rock acts, and but it was a great learning experience, because I suddenly not only we had this product that we took around and we did sketches, but we became writers and directors, and so I learned a lot. You learn a lot when you're opening for Eddie Rabbitt in Petaluma. You're the opening act. You learn quickly what works and what doesn't for 3,000 people. So I finally came back to New York because I got this job in a television series with Mickey Rooney and Dana Carvey called One of the Boys, one of the worst sitcoms in the history of American television. But it got me back to New York because we'd been in LA, and then it quickly ended after 13 episodes, and I went, and the guy at William Morris was head of the theater department. I said, what I really want to do is theater. And he said, you just did a television series. What do you want to do theater for? He was head of the theater department. And I said, well, I think that's really what I do best. And so I left William Morris, and I went with a new agent, and the first thing he sent me on was an audition for this revival of Present Laughter, Circle in the Square, a Noel Coward play, starring George C. Scott, which was surprising. To audition for this part of Roland Mall, the would-be playwright law student who's obsessed with Gary Essendine, the Noel Coward character, here being played by George C. Scott. So, I worship George C. Scott. He was a very famous actor at the time, and had done a lot of theater. I think his heart was really in the theater, although he was a movie star and won the Oscar for Patton. So I had in our comedy act, we had done a sketch about whatever happened to Christopher Robin. And so I was Christopher Robin, and I had a little teddy bear, and I was now 35, and my father is telling me, you have to go out and get a job. And I would say, oh, a job, that sounds icky. And I don't want to grow up, Father. Peter Pan didn't, Pinocchio didn't, Jerry Lewis didn't, neither shall I. So I had this character. So when I went in and auditioned for this part of Roland Mall, I sort of used this character. And George C. Scott was sitting there. I believe he was smoking. And I heard him laughing, you know, this rumbly sort of laugh. And it was the quickest I ever had gotten a part. And 2 days later, they called and said, "You got the part." And I was ecstatic, you know. And George was, you know, the overall thing about that was, it became a big hit. It was a big success. He was hilarious in it. And it was the debut of Kate Burton, Dana Ivey, Christine Lottie. It was a great group of people, and this was a wonderful part for me. And you know, he was a complicated man. You know, now don't take offense, but after the first read-through, he said aloud, he said, you know, I heard him say this. I'm sitting next to Dana Ivey, and he said, "You know what I like about this cast? No fags." And Dana Ivey turned to me and said, "I'm sure he meant that in a nice way." Now, he loved me, and he was like very paternal with me. He loved me, but he was, the other thing I remember is we had this thing where he would, there's a built into the part, he has this, he's obsessed with that character, and he has this strange laugh, sort of maniacal laugh, and so at one point he tried to get away from me, and he went all the way over to the other side of the circle of the square, the other side of the stage, to sit in a chair away from me, and by the time he got there, I was already sitting next to him. And it would get a huge laugh, and I'd just be staring at him. And he said to me, and he wouldn't look at me, and he said to me once, "What are you doing when you do, you know, with that laugh is going on so long?" I said, "I'm not doing anything. I go run to the other chair, and I just sit and stare at you, and they're laughing." And he said, "Well, cut them off. I'd like to get home at a decent hour."
Great. That's great.
Anyway, he was very kind to me. You know, as I said, he was a troubled soul, but a brilliant actor. And to be on stage with him was a glorious thing.
Wait, did you leave the show early?
Yes, I did. I left him. I went to do a musical called Merlin, the magical musical for the entire family. Starring Doug Henning and Cheetah Rivera. And it would be my first musical. It was with Cheetah Rivera, and they were going to pay me a little bit of money at the time. And so I had to go to George and tell him. Oh, no, what happened was he knocked on my dressing room door, and he said, and he's banging, you know, and I opened it up, and he said, "You're leaving me to do a fucking magic show?" I said, "Yeah, what?" I said, "You know, it's a little more money, George, and I can." And I said, "I'll get to work with Cheetah Rivera." And he said, "Yeah, she's great, but Doug Henning seems retarded." This was the 80s, you could still say retarded. And I explained that he wasn't retarded, just Canadian.
Jesus.
Anyway.
That's beautiful.
Well, and he said, "Well, when you," he said, "when you come crawling back, the door is always open."
Okay, now, Dana, you made your Broadway debut for Tony Randall's National Actors Theater.
I did.
Okay,
yeah.
A Little Hotel on the Side.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Feydeau farce, yeah.
You had a few roles in that, right? Who'd you play?
Gosh, I was a porter at one point, and then somebody left, and I was bumped up to, a policeman or something like that. Yeah, the thing that I remember about it is I'd worked with Tony in Summer Stock in 1987, And I said to him, if you ever do this National Actors Theater thing, which he'd been talking about for 20 years, I said, I would love to be a part of it. Because we got along so well when we were working together. I mean, he was just such a character, and I had idolized him in The Odd Couple, of course, on TV, he and Jack. And he said, oh, well, I'll do that. And then in 1992, I picked up the phone. He went, Danny, Tony Randall, and sure enough, there he was offering me, and after years of auditioning for Broadway show after Broadway show, that phone call just went, oh, and I went, yeah, I'll do it, hung up, and that was it. And Lynn Redgrave was in the company, and Marianne Plunkett, and also making his Broadway debut was Rob Lowe, of all people. It was a great, great time. I had a wonderful time. And the thing that I noticed on opening night, after it was over, was growing up in New York City and doing community theater all over, it just felt exactly the same, I have to say. I was kind of disappointed in a way. I'd been waiting for years to make my Broadway debut, and then I made it, and it was like, oh, well, I might as well be in Flushing, It felt exactly the same. It's just different, different personalities.
The stage is the same, the lights are the same, they're just in a different area.
Exactly. The work is the same.
Yeah.
And that taught me a lot.
About that.
We have time for one question from the audience. This is a really fabulous question. What piece of advice would you give your younger self in the industry? If you were looking back, this industry has changed so much. It changes every day.
Yeah.
What advice would you give your younger self about how the industry is, or what?
Well, I'm actually glad I didn't know how hard it would be.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's any advice. It is a very difficult life sometimes. There's no doubt about it, especially starting out. It's very hard. But part of me also wants to tell myself, what the hell were you so worried about? Just know that, have faith in yourself that...
That's an optimist, isn't it? That's an optimist.
I am.
Beautiful. Zoe, for you, what would you
I've
tell your
always
younger
said
self?
to young kids, find another job that you really enjoy, so that because you need to get a roof over your head and you need to pay, because you can't just rely on this gig. It's just too cruel.
Nathan, for you.
What would I tell my younger self? Oh, invest in Netflix. I don't know. There's so many things I could tell my younger self. I don't think there's nothing you can tell your younger self, because you have to live through it to learn all the things you might tell them. It's everyone has to make that journey towards some sort of adulthood or maturity, and I don't, I did what I did, and lived through it, and no, there is no. I mean, it's like, yes, I always say I don't say have something to fall back on. If there's anything else you could be happy doing, do that. Don't do this unless you have to, unless you have that kind of passion. And then, we wish you all the luck in the world, but it's such a difficult business. I don't even know how. I mean, I can't imagine coming to New York now to afford an apartment, or or to and it's so different now. Everything is about the technology and social media. All of that nonsense that you. It's like people have careers on YouTube, showing up and talking about their lives. I don't know. It's like here's what I had for lunch. That kind of stuff, and you think I'm not on any of that stuff, any social media, but it's a huge part of it, part of the business now.
Well, I want to thank you all. They do 8 shows a week. It is Friday. I thank you very much for spending it with me this afternoon. SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Danny Burstein, Zoe Wanamaker, and Nathan Lane.
And Richard Ridge.